Okay, so we don't really have to beat around the bush too much because there's actually a lot of Raptors news to sort of cover. So we can kind of go around and do it. I think the major thing that came out today, which was already hinted at, I believe by Mike Scotto about a week back, is that the Raptors plan to offer Fred VanVleet an extension worth up to $114 million over 4 years. This was also reported today by Jake Fisher. Now, I think this will be contingent on, so Fred is under contract next year, no options, nothing like that, for $21 million in the 2022-2023 season. After that, he has a player option worth about $22 million. He can decline that now and then assign that extension. And essentially, that extension will cover from the 2023-24 season through the 2026-2027 season. An extension of $114 million over 4 years would probably start about $25 million the first year and end up around $32 in the last year of the deal. Vivek, let me just get your thoughts on that. First off, does that sound right to you? Is this the right time to do it? And is Fred the kind of guy to invest that significant amount of money into?
I do think it's the right time. I think
Okay.
when you look at Fred this season, he's had, obviously, there's some disappointment in the second half with the injury,
Yep.
but at the end of the day, you've seen the way he's grown since he's joined this organization. You expect that to continue in the years to come. Age-wise, I feel like there's more still left in the tank in terms of his growth and development as a player. He's obviously the vocal leader of this franchise and is the heart and soul of this franchise. And so establishing that for several years to come, if it goes through, is really important and sets the franchise in a good place. And then, let's face it, those relationships that he has with Pascal Siakam, he's been an important part of Scotty Barnes' growth as well. He's talked many times about pushing him to be great. Having all of those things in place helps too.
Yeah, no, fair enough. I mean, I agree with you. I actually have no doubt that Fred is the type of person and also the type of leader that you would want in your organization. Because I think that that's the stuff that isn't covered so much when you open a player's page on Basketball Reference.
Right.
Now I think there might be a little bit more question in terms of the type of player, just based on what we have seen in playoffs past in terms of as a lead option. Does he generate enough offense for you? Can he stay healthy enough for you in the playoffs? I think these are questions that are worth asking. But oddly enough, even though the contract would be $114 million over 4 years, which is a ton of money, objectively, in relative terms, it could be a lot less. And the reason for that is this. So it's already been reported today that the salary cap for next season will be up to $123 million. Currently, right now, it's at 112. So that's already like a 10% jump, right? Right away. Now, the big jump that's actually going to happen will be starting the 2025 season because, and I was just double checking because I remember reading about this, but, I had to go and double check. So the current TV deal, which makes up the bulk of the salary cap, right? Because players get half essentially of all the basketball related revenue. And this is the bulk of basketball related revenue is their current TV deal with ESPN and TNT. It's worth $24 billion. This current one that's lasting about 9 years, and it'll carry you through the 2024 season. Starting 2025, the reports here, and I'm reading one from Jabari Young of CNBC, suggests that the next TV deal could be $75 million or $79 million. Sorry, $1 billion in the deal. So what you're looking at is you're looking at a salary cap that probably starts at $171 million,
right?
Roughly. Now, let's say it doesn't jump entirely. Maybe they do the cap smoothing. Maybe it's 160. Maybe even it's 150. At that point, though, when you're looking at a contract that's $25 million, all of a sudden your percentage of the cap that you're eating up for one player jumps from right now maybe a quarter of the cap down to about a fifth of the cap. And if there is no smoothing, it could be something even as little as 15, 16% of the cap.
Right.
And for me, at that number, I'm just are you willing to give Fred VanVleet 16% of your salary cap? Let alone most teams go above the salary cap. So first off, it's really about the tax line. But
considering that the max, the absolute max is 35%. You
Yes.
pretty much be at half.
Exactly. That's what I'm saying. Like, you're going to see $300 million contracts being signed very soon. You're going to see contracts that are $60 million per year very soon. In fact, you're already seeing a lot of it. Like,
You're almost there.
yeah, Westbrook just picked up his player option for $47 million.
Yep.
And obviously, he's not going to get that going forward, but there will be players who will be signing in that $50 to $60 million per year range. And if you're telling me that you're signing Fred for 30, yeah, I think that's a good deal. Like, I actually think you could pretty much sign any quality player to an extension if you're capable of doing so, and it will make a lot of sense just based on how the economics are going to change. Again, this TV deal is going from $25 billion over 7 years to about $75 billion.
No, that's significant. I mean, the last time there was a cap spike, you had Kevin Durant join the Warriors.
Exactly, right? So we'll see if there's smoothing and stuff. I mean, the league owners last time were just like, no, let's just spend it. The players are definitely like, let's just spend the money.
Right.
But at the same time,
Bismack Biyombo was definitely like, spend the money.
Man. Good for Bismack Biyombo though, man.
Great for him.
You see him the story this past year where he forgoed his entire salary.
Oh yeah.
Towards building a hospital.
Yeah.
In the DRC, like he's a good man. He's an
amazing man. Yeah. And he's someone's father. And
oh. That's correct, yeah.
Great times in Toronto. Unforgettable performances in the playoffs.
Yeah. He matched one of Hakeem's records, I think, for rebounding.
The rebounding?
Yeah. That's impressive, man.
Yeah. And I'm sure, that means a lot to him to be on a list with Hakeem.
Yeah.
And, good for Bismack. Go get that money. And, unfortunately, that Suns run couldn't go past that second round this time. But we'll see where he ends up.
Okay, by the way, I know we're taking a tangent because we're really talking about Fred. Somehow we're on Bismack Biyombo in 2016, which, again, was a really great time. Honestly, the second best playoff run in franchise history.
Summer 16 was the time.
It was incredible. Beating the Heat in Game 7, oh my God. The celebrations at that point.
The streets were wild.
The streets were literally wild.
Fred
VanVleet, the contract. Yeah, I mean, I just think in terms of the economics alone, if we're just get back to this conversation, like the economics alone, like it's not a no-brainer in the sense that, like, I think you still have to be a little bit concerned. I think you still have to think about, okay, is there injury that might play into this? It's still a lot of money. But at the same time, based on the type of person he is, the quality of player, even if he tops out at what he is this year, which, by the way, was a very, very good player, made the All-Star team and everything like that, I think the deal is worth it. And I think from Fred's perspective, I wanted to ask you that too, is just like, what do you think he's thinking? Because Fred's also a businessman. He's very well aware of everything. He literally has a business podcast.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think he's amenable to something like this? Do you think the security of this is like something where he looks at it as like, okay, look, I might be taking maybe less money in the long run because he might sign 2 deals and the second deal might be worth more than this deal? Or do you think of it as like $114 million is $114 million, and if I can secure that right now, I'm going to do it?
Yeah, I think, that 9-figure contract, when you see it on paper, that's a hard thing.
That's more
to
than
say
we'll
no
ever
to.
see.
Yeah, that's for sure. That's for sure. And so I think with Fred VanVleet, he's a businessman, but I think he's also a practical man.
Yep.
That's why we call him Steady Freddy.
Okay.
And I think, in terms of paying for future growth, which is what you're doing sometimes in these contracts, I think Fred will understand that that's probably a fair estimation in terms of the 4 years to come.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think he would be amenable to that. And then, you think about someone like Jalen Brunson, the money that he's sort of projected at, right? You would say that it's a fair deal for Fred in terms of the intangibles he brings, in terms of the skill he brings on the court on both ends of the floor, his shooting, how valuable that is to the Raptors as a volume shooter on this roster. I think it's an extremely fair deal, and you expect him to continue to get better. That's what he said in terms of what's next, right? Like a year ago, he might have said, hey, I want to make the All-Star team. I want to make the All-Defensive. Obviously, the latter didn't happen. He was very close. But at the end of season interview, he said, I want to be known as a championship team point guard.
Yeah.
And so he's going to do whatever he has to do to get there. In terms of the positives that we saw this season, I think there was a bit of a quicker release in terms of getting off his three.
Yep.
And I think he worked on that mid-range as well. Now, he wasn't able to create the separation to get to the mid-range once he was suffering from the injury. And I think that took away a fair chunk. And again, you know, when he wasn't able to knock down the three, he was only at 29% after the All-Star break. That also is going to have defenders change how they perceive you, right? And maybe not give you as much respect as when you were knocking down 38 to 40%.
Yep.
And so I think those things took away from how we might look at Fred on the whole. But if that's the version that you can get come postseason, then he's well worth it.
Yeah, I agree. And again, because the cap will go up so much, I think he's worth it regardless. You know what I'm saying? And
but I'm saying he's worth it right now.
I agree. That's the thing too. It's like I actually don't want to take anything from what he's become, because I think this past season was very significant for him. This extension would cover him from age 29 to 33. So I think it's fair to ask, like, how would his game age over that time? Now, we're seeing a lot of players' primes like last quite long. Like I think you're essentially getting his very, very best years. You're already getting his best years right now. I think he entered his prime this past season at 27, and it's going to carry him until he's 33. Obviously, there's still one more year remaining on his deal next season on his current deal. But do you have any concerns long term, or at least long term in the sense of like through age 33?
I think on some level, you have to be a bit wary of his injury history.
Okay.
And
in what sense though? Because he hasn't undergone surgery.
Right.
He hasn't had any like major recurring injuries. It's not like Derrick Rose with his ankle all the time.
Yeah.
You know, like
but,
that kind of thing.
But that's the thing, right? It seems like every season there's some type of nick or knack or bruise or something that he's dealing with.
Fair.
And at his size, it can be limiting. And so when you look at how limiting this injury was, for example, something that he didn't end up needing surgery for, just rest and recovery.
Yep.
It shows that, you know, when he takes a blow, you know, maybe it impacts him a certain way. And so I think on some level you have that concern. But the other side of that is, how do you manage his minutes better going forward? Because the last two seasons you have asked a lot out of him.
Yep.
He's been the league leader and then among the league leaders in minutes per game. And so I feel like with Fred, you've got to be really watchful of that going forward. In terms of his role going forward, I feel like as Scottie gets more comfortable, you're going to put the ball more in his hands. Fred is going to be in a role where he's more comfortable playing off ball, catch and shoots, all of that. Obviously, we've seen Point Pascal. And so I think that is going to make the transition for him easier as well as he ages.